Alright Shove It Squad, today's video is going to be one that's a bit controversial for some of you. I did put it off for a bit, but then I thought screw it, things have changed and I've saved up for a gut protector. So you can all punch me in the gut as much as you want, it ain't gonna hurt me. So if you've got an issue with today's video, I've got 7 words for you. Shut up or I'll smack you one. Today's video was also a Patreon request by Jaden Honecker. If you want to make the Hawk talk, sign up today. Gail Kim, she was amazing in TNA, right? A brilliant wrestler who had one of the best women's feuds of all time against Awesome Kong. End of video. In today's video, I'm going to set out to prove how TNA's reliance on Gail Kim ultimately caused the death of their Knockouts division. This is when Gail Kim was the John Cena of TNA. And just to be clear, I do not hate this woman and I respect how she revolutionised women's wrestling. She just became a bit too much in TNA and they relied on her way too hard to their detriment of the rest of their roster. And if you ignore her first run with TNA, the matches on the Comeback Tour were mostly nothing special. Kinda makes this whole thing worse. We're not here to do a career retrospective, I'm going to keep the backstory brief or you'll knock out my teeth. Kim spent a couple of years with the WWE before getting released in 2004 and she was hired to TNA Wrestling in 2005. At the time, there was no women's division and she was used as a manager for America's Most Wanted, James Storm and Chris Harris. She did regularly get physically involved in their matches, but there were no women's matches. Eventually, she helped create the TNA Knockouts division and was crowned its first champion in 2007. Gail was 30 years old at the time in the prime of her wrestling career. Unfortunately for her, the dominant Awesome Kong had set her sights on the belt and the two had the most famous Knockouts feud in TNA history. It was great. At the time, it was a million times better than anything the WWE women were putting on and it helped show that women's wrestling was something that could be taken seriously. Ultimately, these two had a pretty even head-to-head record. It's hard to say who actually won the feud. Well, I guess the true winner were the fans. Something really important I would like to note is that Gail Kim beat Kong on 3 pay-per-view matches and Kong didn't beat her in any one-on-one pay-per-view matches. Bear that in mind. 2008 rocked around and Gail Kim went back to the WWE because that went so well for her last time. She had been treated pretty well by TNA and she'd won the Knockouts title, the Knockout of the Year and a Gauntlet for Gold. Along with that, she also held a position that management would listen to. She was certainly booked as the face of the division, so it's strange that she went back to the WWE. And it did not go well, in fact it was a complete waste of time. She returned to TNA in 2011 with her tail between her legs and this is where things really started to change. It did not take long for Gail Kim's first victim to emerge in TNA. With Gail gone, TNA had been forced to try and create some new stars, and Madison Rayne had emerged from the Beautiful People and was dominating the women in TNA. Now, I am not the biggest Madison Rayne fan. She's really small, she's never had a good match. Her shtick in 2011 was a complete rip-off of Vicky Guerrero's screaming promos. But still, she had been pushed hard, and for some reason was a 3-time Knockout champion and was the favourite of Jarrett, who was in charge of the Knockouts. Gail just walked straight back into TNA and quickly knocked Madison down a peg. Gail became Karen's new favourite and Madison came off as nothing other than a Gail Kim lackey. They did win the Knockouts tag belts together, but it just came off as it was all down to how good Gail was. It did used to be all about Madison, but now Gail had arrived and Madison was essentially just here to do her dirty work, even though she had already proved that she could get the job done as Knockouts champion. It was unnecessary. The matches were ridiculous. Madison would just get beaten and destroyed and Gail would just roll in and win with each defeat time and time again. Meanwhile, they had been playing hot potato with the Knockouts title, but that all changed and Gail quickly won it and kept it for 210 days, a record at the time, making her a double champion. Velvet Sky had been the champion before Gail, but lost it only after 28 days. She would not find her way back into the title picture for a very long time. During this time, Gail's best buddy / lackey, Madison Rayne, ran in and interfered, helping her to win all of her matches. I kept asking myself, doesn't Madison care? She was the queen bee of this division and now she's a lackey. It doesn't make much sense. She proved she could do it on her own, but now she's not good enough? With the backing of Slapnuts' wife, Gail and Madison were the dominant heels all over the show. It was actually surprising how much Gail was favoured over Mickie James. She beat Mickie in 4 straight singles matches. Mickie had also recently debuted for TNA, just like Gail, so you may think they just want to strap a rocket to her and let her ass fly. But no, it actually took 2 years for Mickie to beat Gail. Talk about the chase. It's worth noting that whilst these matches were nothing incredible by today's standards, they were pretty good for 2011. Gail finished up the year with 0 losses and a perfect record. 2012 started with some tension between super besties Gail and Madison. Madison had won a battle royal to become the #1 contender, with Gail most likely assuming that Madison would just throw that match. But before that match could take place, they managed to lose the Knockout tag titles. Oh, so Gail finally put someone over. Who was it? It was ODB and Eric Young in a comedy match. Shove it. Eric Young had been taken out of a belt shot, but he fell on top of Gail for the 3. Don't you just love it how it wasn't even ODB, a woman, sort of, who pinned her? So, Gail and Madison wrestle on pay-per-view at Victory Road 2011, and they do actually end up having a proper match. But it goes the same way that they all do, with Gail Kim not doing the JOB. Madison Rayne goes right back to being Gail's bitch like nothing ever happened. Next up for Gail is the challenge of Velvet Sky in a steel cage. Not exactly Velvet's strong point, but Gail carries her to a somewhat decent match, nothing too offensive here. Velvet does the JOB. It's quickly established that rookie Brooke Tessmacher would be the next challenger. Brooke called her out on open fight night for a non-title match, and Brooke actually beat her in multiple matches, showing that she is a worthy contender, whilst at the same time showing that Gail can do the JOB after all. But can she do the job when the job truly matters? When the belt's on the line at the pay-per-view? No jobs to be found here. It's the same old story. Gail always finds a way to win. It doesn't matter what momentum the challenger has. At this point, people were shaking with anger. Brooke was the fans' choice, the right choice, and a booty choice, and the choice for the Hawk. The fans were all behind her, or at least they wanted to be. She would have been the fresh choice. Gail celebrates that win by cutting a promo, bragging that she is now officially the longest reigning Knockouts champion of all time, whilst they show people in the back looking like they're going to puke. There was no mention that the woman she took the title of longest reigning from was the appropriately named Madison Rayne. But you know, she didn't care because she was just Gail's bitch. Tessmacher somehow became #1 contender again because it went so well for her last time, and she challenged at Slammiversary. And lo and behold, Gail finally does the job when it matters. Tessmacher wins clean and Gail is done. That ends her title reign at a record-setting 210 days. So Gail dominated this company and refused to do the JOB. End of video. Except this wasn't even her longest damn title reign. So off we go to 2015, where Gail once again forgets how to do the JOB. She actually had two other shorter title reigns in between these two that we're focusing on, but I do have to give credit where credit's due. During this time, Gail feuded with Taryn Terrell, the former Tiffany, in 2013. Whilst the belt wasn't on the line, this was one of the few times where Gail really contributed to helping make someone, because Taryn really gained a lot from feuding with Gail. Anyway, there is a reason why Gail still to this day, all these years later, has held the belt for more days than anyone else in TNA at an eye-wobbling 711 days across 7 different reigns. We skip forward to 2015, and Gail was not in the mood to do the job once again. She was feuding with an entire faction called the Dollhouse, because they were very boring. She regularly competed against the entire group in handicap matches, which Gail would win. Marvel as she wins a handicap cage match and at the same time makes the Dollhouse look completely incompetent and dumb. Tessmacher was having another title reign, but Gail soon put a stop to that. There would actually be a couple of victims of this Gail Kim title reign, and this might surprise you, because it's 2015, but Awesome Kong challenged Gail several times but kept losing. She was also a part of the Dollhouse faction, so it seemed like Gail had real beef with these girls. They even had a pay-per-view match where they tried to recapture their successes from 2011. They didn't really manage it. Gail wins. One of the other ladies in the Dollhouse group was Mia Yim, who was called Jade at the time. Gail regularly said that she saw her as the future of TNA, but that didn't stop Gail from basically destroying her and the faction on her own. We were regularly told that Jade was the future. I am not exaggerating. On a weekly basis they told us that Jade was the future of this company. It surely meant she was going to have some passing of the torch type moment with Gail at some point, but we never really got it. When the time finally came for Jade to win the Knockouts title, it came in a 3-minute triple threat match on Impact, and she only beat Gail Kim due to Maria's interference. So Jade gained little to nothing after this win, and it could have been so different with a proper knockout drag-out affair on pay-per-view. That was a 232-day title reign right there. If you can't believe what you've heard already, it's about to get a whole lot worse. So a quick warning, refrain from the curse. Towards the end of 2016, Gail beat Maria to once again become the Knockouts champion. This was sort of tied in with Gail Kim's Hall of Fame induction. She defended this title twice, but then she got injured and she had to vacate the title almost straight away. They aired this segment where Gail went on and on about how great Jade was. It seemed like she was about to give Jade a title shot, and we're finally going to get the match they've been hinting at for years. The passing of the torch moment that we all needed. Instead, Rosemary came out and sprayed mist at Gail and beat her down so badly that she had to vacate the belt. Poor Jade. They wanted her to be the future so badly, but they just didn't give her what she really needed. A win over Gail Kim. Jade left TNA a couple of months after this without really fulfilling the potential that we're told she had. Gail returned and wrestled for the belt at Bound for Glory 2017 in a triple threat. Once again, Gail Kim wins, and immediately, She vacates the belt because she's retiring now. They give her about 10 seconds of celebrations before cutting to the back. The next night, Chelsea Green wins the vacant belt and immediately requests her release from TNA. What an absolute state of affairs. Why couldn't Gail Kim put someone over this time? What was the excuse? In 2019, Gail Kim came out of retirement and feuded with Tessa Blanchard. And it is here that Gail finally did the job. I guess she thought Tessa was worthy of passing the torch to, but she may as well have not bothered because we all know how Tessa Blanchard turned out in wrestling. Don't get the Hawk wrong, Gail Kim was great in TNA. If anything, she was too great. For most of her stay, she was head and shoulders above the other women. That could possibly be TNA's fault for not building anybody else up, and it meant they had an over-reliance on Gail Kim to prop this division up. Madison Rayne really suffered because of Gail. The Dollhouse faction was pretty much destroyed by Gail on her own. And Jade? Man, I don't know what happened. It felt like for years Gail was talking her up, but they never pulled the trigger. She really should have done the job in 2017, but there just wasn't really any good options with Jade leaving TNA. The only real beneficiary of working with Gail was Taryn Terrell, but as soon as we'd gone through that, Taryn was out of the company too. I have to admit, I think more of the blame lies with TNA here. They can't have expected Gail Kim to continue forever, and it shows, because it took them 2 years to find Tessa Blanchard, someone who was worthy of having Gail Kim's last match. It feels like TNA saw Gail as the only star in this women's division. The Hawk doesn't have a foot fetish, but I feel like I've eaten defeat with this one right here, and if you don't agree with that, I tell your girl, turn around, show me your rear.